Welcome back to the show. I'm here with JP Sears, world-famous video comedian. Over 200 million, I need to say 2 million total balls up there, but many millions of episodes have been watched on YouTube. If you haven't seen them, they are very funny, poking fun at some new age stuff. And he just came out with a book as well, which goes by the same name as his YouTube channel, Ultra Spiritual. And we're going to be talking today about how he got started on releasing these comedy videos and how he overcame the fear that he had before he released his first video, how he evaluates business decisions and directions based on his intuition and heart, and how he got started using intuition in his 20s. And we'll also dig into some videos he was nervous about releasing and even a video he deleted. So that's coming up in the episode. And also fears he overcame with writing a book and why he decided to write it. So great to have you on the show, JP.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you being irresponsible enough to invite me on. I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Yes. So you have an amazing YouTube channel. I have split myself laughing and probably peed in my pants watching some of these videos. But it seems a strange thing to do. You were like a healer or a coach before you started releasing videos?
Yeah, working under the umbrella of a coach doing emotional healing work. I had been doing that for about 13 years before I released my first comedy video. Very sincere work, helping people heal their hearts, helping people help themselves to heal their hearts. So it seemingly, I think on the surface, appears to be something very different than comedic work, yet honestly, it's incredibly related because the comedic work that I do, based on my delusional point of view, I'm using the language of comedy to simply deliver deeper perspectives, and the deeper perspectives around human nature, the things we do individually, society, wise as well, those things that we do that's more in the undercurrent of our psyche and our heart, all the work I've been doing with clients and myself for 13 years before the first comedy video really taught me, like, what am I doing comedy on? What happens in the human psyche? And then I think the comedy, if I was oversimplifying it, is essentially helping people see the unseen. Looking under the obvious and showing it to people.
And why is comedy better for that than just telling them straight out what they're not seeing?
Well, a couple of dimensions to that answer. One would be because comedy is authentic to me. It's a very natural thing for me. I have an inner comedian. It's just part of who I am. So it helps me honor me. It's one of my authentic ways of expressing my voice. And I don't necessarily think it's a better way of conveying deeper perspectives if comedy isn't authentic to an individual. But given the fact that it's authentic to me, I find people are much more willing to pay attention to comedy than they are just a straightforward, sincere message. And I think part of that is when we're listening to something being conveyed comedically, it's a playful energy. So it doesn't as much look like there's anything to defend against. But, if we all know, we just all know how defended we get when someone starts to proselytize to us. I don't even know if I said that word right. Probably not. But when someone starts preaching at us like, Jesus is your savior, it's like our defenses are already up. Or you need to eat this way. This is the way. It's like you're pushing on me. You're trying to push my psyche into a place that it's not. So it's just so natural to defend against something. Even if it's true, we'll defend against it. And hopefully, especially if it's not true, we'll defend against it. So with that energy, that pushing energy of telling people what's true, we just get so defended and don't even consider the message. But with comedy, it can go in so that we can consider it because it doesn't look like there's anything to defend against because there's nothing to defend against. It's playfulness. It's like if you watch children playing, we'll probably feel relaxed. But if you watch people stabbing each other, we're not going to feel relaxed because it's not a playful state.
Yes, stabbing people for emotional healing. That sounds a very lucrative field.
Yeah, but I don't recommend stabbing people. Just disclaimer. No confusion.
Yes, don't do this at home, people. But use comedy at home because it might make your point more effectively.
I agree, for sure.
So how did you get started on this? Was there some intuitive message that came to you? Or?
It was a perpetual path into honoring myself more. So I mentioned I'd been doing the emotional healing work for about 13 years before I released my first comedy video. And during that time, I had sold myself a story. The story told me, don't be funny, JP. Don't be funny in business and the professional world because it'll discredit you. Like emotional healing people, spiritual people, they're not funny. Like look at Eckhart Tolle. He's like super informative, but he's not funny. So I essentially was trying to get myself to be someone who I wasn't. Trying to like amputate the funny part of me for the professional life, but like I can be funny in my personal life. And I think after enough self-betrayal, I just got sick of it. It's like, yeah, I'm afraid this will be bad for business. That'll be painful. Yes. But it's more painful betraying myself. So I said yes to the inspiration that wanted to start making comedic videos, to share my perspectives, to share lessons. And it was a risk. It was a jump off a cliff. Sometimes I think being ourselves is easier said than done, but it's always something where we win, period. If we're being ourselves, if we're betting on us being us, we win. However, it always feels like a big risk, in my opinion, when we're at the edge of being ourselves to an even truer degree. So I was at an edge where it's like, wow, this is scary. It feels very risky, but I'm doing it anyway. And it so happened to be that it turned out like that's the best thing I ever could have done for my business. So it's like, oh, wow, I was wrong. My story was wrong. I thought this was going to be terrible. I couldn't have been more wrong, which was just like a nice convenience, even if my story was right and it turned out to be bad for business. I think it's better to have it be bad for business, even though I'm being myself. And it just might mean my business isn't like the right thing for me, because I think I find for me, the more I can show up as just me in my personal life and professional life, the better off I am. It's a challenge to do at times because I'll have preconceived notions that I just make up about who I think other people think I should be, who I need to be for them. And sometimes it's easy to worship that and betray myself. And it is much more rewarding or scarier to betray who I think people want me to be in honor of honoring myself. And just being me and not apologizing for it.
I think that's something a lot of listeners can connect with. You know, a lot of us in our businesses don't always be our true selves. And maybe this can be an inspiration that it's a good thing to do. You'll feel happier. Your business will do better, or your business will pivot. Maybe if your current business can't handle it, maybe you need a new business that can handle the real you.
I agree. I think when we are not being the real us, we're playing it freaking small. We really are. We're playing a limited game. I would guess we're probably trying to fulfill the prophecy of what we think is supposed to happen. And sometimes life has it that it's far bigger than the delusional little prophecy that we've imagined. So I don't. Go ahead.
Where do you think that little self comes from? I mean, most people have that experience of playing themselves small. Where does that come from, do you think?
Yeah, I personally think it comes from our fear-based mentality. It's like, welcome to human nature. We all have it. And I think the more we play it small, the more we feel in control. And the more we feel in control, the less fear we feel. Some would define fear as the sensation of being out of control. So if we're the flower, not playing it small by being in the bud where everything's in control, everything's predictable, we know what's going to happen. We comprehend the smallness, says flower consciousness. But if we betray that and say, yeah, I'm willing to be myself, we start to bloom. So we go well beyond the comprehension of our control and the comprehension of what's familiar. So I think an unwillingness to be uncomfortable and afraid is why so many of us play it small. It sounds glorious to play it big, like, like be yourself and allow your gifts to shine. And allow yourself to discover your gifts. They all look dull and dirty before they shine, but we've got to discover them in the dull and dirty form first. So it sounds great on paper, like let your gifts shine, and awesome. But it's scary to actually do, in my opinion, because it means to the degree that we're allowing our gifts to shine, that's the degree that we're surrendering rather than being in control. And the degree that we're surrendering control rather than having control is the degree that we're going to be afraid. And I don't think fear is the enemy. I think being afraid of our fear is the enemy. So in other words, I think trying to avoid our fear is what limits people. I think fear is a very healthy force. But trying to avoid it, I think that's where we really, really get into a place of self-induced, call it smallness, and dissatisfaction and emptiness in life.
I like that. The fear is not the enemy, it's fearing the fear. So that's the issue. So feel the fear and do it anyway, to quote a famous book.
I love it. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yes. So when you're making decisions in your business, how do you do that these days?
I just open a fortune cookie and hope that it's speaking to the situation at hand. Yeah. I personally, how I do it now, and I've had to learn this lesson so many damn times because I'm a slow learner. So how I do it now on my good days is I don't make decisions based on what I think. I make decisions based on what I feel. And by feel, I'm not talking about like emotionally, like I'm angry, sad, happy, but more even deeper than that, the gut feeling. How does this feel in my heart? Which is, I think that's some of the physical interface feedback of intuition. I think it's incredibly intuitive. So I really love to make decisions based on how it feels to me. Like, wow, that feels, yes, let's do that. Ooh, that opportunity feels heavy. No reason to say no other than it feels heavy. So no. And I think to me, it's important that I'm willing to essentially appear crazy to other people. Like, you're saying no to this because it feels heavier in your chest. Yeah. It's like zero, no other reason. That's the reason. Like, I don't have any logical reasons. Sometimes I'll have logical reasons, certainly, but sometimes I just don't. And I think a willingness to honor myself, even though some people might think I'm crazy, and maybe they don't, but I imagine they probably do think I'm crazy at times. So that's really important. And I've had so many times of betraying that. It's like, no, like that feels heavy. That feels like a no. But I think it's such a great idea. I think so. So I'll betray my intuition. Man, I mean, my beautiful assistant Karen could tell you, we get so much resistance. I mean, just like life creates so much friction when we betray that. It's like life is like really, we're the dog who pooped in the living room, and life is rubbing our face in the poop to teach us, don't do that again. Like, don't outthink your intuition again, because you're not going to outthink it. And so many of those lessons have really reaffirmed to me I think it's an art of listening to intuition and then the courage of honoring the intuition.
So what was your latest instant having life wipe the poop in your face when you not paid attention to your intuition?
Yeah, uh, the last one that comes to my mind, there's been a couple in the past couple of months. One was uh, verbally agreeing to do a speaking gig for a much lower dollar amount than is my normal, because like they're a friend of a friend. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And like I felt resistant to it, but I almost I'll please two people. I'll please this person, and I'll please the friend in the middle. And there was just so much hassle involved, so much nitty gritty, and so much like they were coming back and asking for so much more than I was offering. And after many hours of communication with them, and not to mention lots of, I would call it emotional tension, I just made the call, like, there's not a contract signed, and I am going to go against my word. This is a no. And I don't like to go against my word, but in this case, it's going with my intuition, my word. Unfortunately, I spoke it. It came from what I thought was best, and I dishonored myself there. So I have to dishonor my dishonored self's word and honor my heart, my intuition. And, on the flip side, I also just really excitingly, this past Saturday, was it Saturday? It might've been last Friday. So within a week, I woke up, it was like 4:30, maybe 5 a.m. And like, I just couldn't sleep. There was just this creative impulse coming through me, this idea of do a video on this topic. The topic is essentially how not to get all negative, but how the American Heart Association recently released their propaganda about how coconut oil is bad for you. So like, I had known about that for a few weeks, but just like I woke up and I got to do a video on this. And I didn't even want to go back to sleep. So I got a crappy night of sleep so that I could start the creative process on that video. And then, quick turnaround on that video a couple of days ago, I released it, and it's hit such a sweet spot for people where it's seemingly really representing people with where they feel they're at. It's representing their voice that they don't know how to voice. And, it's in less than 2 days, it's got over 10 million views on it. And to me, and I don't at all measure things just by view count. That's just one form of external feedback. But that, to me, the whole thing is really validating, like, wow, I honored my intuition there. Like, first off, I valued swim in this river of intuition instead of going back to sleep. And just honoring, like, I want to disrupt my normally scheduled day and just start this video. So that it's nice to be able to recognize the real validation when we do honor intuition, rather than just recognizing how life punishes us when we discount our intuition.
So how long did that video take you to make? It's a few minutes long, but I'm imagining it took a day or two to put together.
Yeah, so I gave myself, there was probably 3 different writing sessions on it. I would guess that was probably about 6 hours of writing time. And, it's not my writing time. It's not just, I'm at my computer, like literally typing for 6 hours. It's like, no, this 2-hour block, this is for video creative time. So some of that, like, I'm on my computer or phone making notes. Others, like, I'm just walking around in circles, looking and just allowing myself to be open and blindsided by ideas that I'm not really of, but more like they just come to me. And then, so over the course of, I think, 2 writing sessions on that Friday, 1 writing sessions that Saturday morning, and then I think it was Saturday afternoon, I filmed the video. The filming for this one was super quick, maybe a half an hour. And then I edited the video, and it's, I think, just a shade under 5 minutes long.
So it took quite a few days of work to get that gem of comedic insight out there.
Yeah, I would say essentially like a full day of work that I just distributed out over 2 days.
Yeah. And is it important to you, you have lots of spare time in your schedule to be able to do that kind of thing?
Well, kind of, but my associations anymore, I've had to learn, I don't call that spare time. Otherwise, like my mental association of spare time is like, it's not as valuable. So now I have creative time. And like just the word creative just means a lot more to me than spare. So,
but to someone looking, it might look like you're just hanging out.
yeah, they're like, why is he sitting at the table, like drinking tea and doing nothing? It's like, because I'm doing creative time. For sure, it's the most valuable thing I do in my schedule, to be honest with you. So now, I mean, there's once in a while an exception, but I've really crusaded hard to have 1 hour of creative time in my each day. Once in a while, it's going to be a little more. Once in a while, the seriousness of life gets the best of me, and my creative time gets cast away in favor of something far less important. So I would say it's taken me, been doing comedy videos for 2.5 years. It's probably taken a full 2 years to prioritize the creative time to the point where it's literally written in my schedule. It's off limits to put other appointments here. So before that, I started to really have to fight to have creative time. And it was just like, wow,
Why was that? Why did you have to fight?
Creature of habit. Like before I started doing comedy videos, I didn't have really any active creativity in my life. So it just like, it wasn't familiar to me. So because it became a new thing, I was a creature of habit. I was used to prioritizing the old priorities. But present day, those old priorities are not the priorities. Some of them are important, but they're not the priorities. So it's like I was treating the new priority, creative time, as a second-class citizen and prioritizing the non-priorities. So it has taken me a while of like the inner battles and like letting go of the familiar in favor of honoring essentially the abstract that is creativity. To prioritize creativity. It's taken a while, but it's a big struggle.
Yeah, and I think creativity and intuition are closely related. So having time to hear our intuition, and it's not something that's going to show up for the bean counters in your business. You know, it's not like your accountant is going to say, "Yeah, I saw you had an increase of 200 units of creativity time last quarter."
Spreadsheet.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's the thing. I'm so used to valuing myself based on sort of those bean counters, methods of quantification. Like I would call it the values of my father. Like we value money, we value status, we value maybe people like praising you. But like, yeah, the idea of having to essentially write a new Constitution of the United States of JP that was something I had to do for myself. Very different than my old programming, but it was much more in alignment with me and who I am, not who I was.
If someone listening is having difficulty overcoming their own parents' values of money, status, and praise, what would you suggest the first step might be?
Well, first step to me is to embrace your feelings, realizing like it's hard and it's allowed.
Is that allowed in business? Embracing feelings?
No, I forgot. Business people don't have emotions. What do we have? Oh, we have thoughts. So we got to think. No, like, yeah, of course we're all human beings. I don't care if we call ourselves business people. Like, I don't care what we call ourselves. We're people. We're probably even more than people. We call ourselves people. So I think the first step in the limitation.
I'm going to go off on that tangent. What are we if we're not just people?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know, but I think based on what we define as people, like, you know, someone who has a musculoskeletal system, a brain, a nervous system, endocrine system, digestive system, like that's kind of what we define as people. And then there's this doingness that people tend to do. So that's like our peopleness. But I think the finer things in life are something beyond that. The I think the richness of life comes from subtleties that don't show up in a definition of people. They don't show up in an anatomy book. You know, we're creatures of meaning. We're all hungry for meaning, and I don't think meaning comes from peopleness. I think meaning comes from something beyond that. So I don't know if we call that like our spiritual essence. I don't know if we call that being connected to something beyond ourselves, or we call it inner fulfillment. But I think people need something more than what they call people in order to feel a degree of purpose, meaning, and inner fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the big shifts going on right now from those previous times where everything's rational and it's just people as bodies, you know, cogs in the wheel, so to speak. And now
100%.
People are being them true selves and bringing meaning to their work and their lives, and bringing their spiritual side in and embracing their emotions.
Absolutely. And I think as part of that, when someone can bring all that into their business world, specifically, their business doesn't necessarily seem like a business anymore. Like, yes, there's the businessy things, like here's this stupid spreadsheet and this business license, but there's like, when there's purpose to it, and like there's the intuitive component of it, it's more than a business. It's like, wow, is this my purpose? Is this my art? Is this my self-expression? Is it all of this? Is this my cup of communion of connection with other people? So I think there's something so much more beautiful than just a business that our businesses morph into when we bring these intangible elements that, as you so elegantly said, bean counters can't count.
I mean, I think we're spiritual beings having a human experience rather than human beings occasionally having a spiritual experience.
It's like I lit a candle last night. That was really spiritual. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think your term there, spiritual beings having a human experience, that says in a few short words what my long ramble a moment ago was trying to point to. That's so much more than just the people that we are, in my opinion.
And that's partly why I'm on this mission to get all entrepreneurs and business leaders to openly use their intuition, because it opens up that spiritual side. But I mean, also it helps them make more money in their business and have more joy and not be so stressed. So
yeah, for sure.
And in addition, stop making such stupid decisions that certain business people make, you know, where they hurt other people or hurt the planet. I just think people would do less of that.
Yeah, if you feel the consequences of your actions, like you're probably going to do hurtful actions less.
Yes.
And I think we probably wouldn't have to stretch too far to believe that, especially in entrepreneurship, innovation is one of the best things we can do for business. And innovation to me is just a trendy buzzword that means creativity. And I think creativity is just a little bit of a more tangible synonym for intuition. So if we do the math, we might realize intuition is probably the most priceless asset we can have in our business. And when you look at innovation, innovation doesn't come from calculations. What makes sense? What change makes sense for us to make? But I think some of the greatest innovation are the ones that are just simply byproducts that were birthed through the womb of intuition. And I look at my comedy videos, which have, I feel very blessed that they've been successful in the sense that they've touched the lives of millions of people. And they're also successful in the sense that they've opened up doors of opportunity in business that I couldn't have even dreamed of. So I look at my comedy videos and that they were innovation. And were other people using comedy and sincere self-help? I don't know, probably, but I've never saw them before I started doing it. But it's like, wow, I had the creative impulse to start expressing creativity that way. And if I didn't follow that impulse, which that impulse I think is intuition, then I probably would have been turning my back on, well, what I can definitely say is the best thing I ever did for my business. So yeah, long story short, I mean, I think you and I we're the choir preaching to each other about intuition. Such a valuable asset in business. And I can't help but say this also, honoring our intuition in business, I think is a big component of what gives us inner fulfillment from our business. We all know stories of people who have made millions and sometimes billions, and they hate their life. They feel so unfulfilled. But what if we realize intuition is probably not only great for the bottom line of our business, but it's also the source that can allow us to feel that sense of fulfillment in our business, where we're not just in the rat race of no matter how much growth we've experienced is never enough, where we're just hungry, trying to satiate ourselves in insatiable ways. But I think intuition is something that comes from within, intuition. So I think it can be what fills us up. And therefore, I think it's incredibly inspiring.
I would agree with that. Looking at the amount you've made, or looking at the number of views you've had on videos, it's not like when we get to certain, if you've got to 500 million views, you've got it made and that's it, you can retire.
Yeah, you cross the line. There's the parade and life is just
Yeah.
awesome from that.
It's having the inner fulfillment of affected other people's lives in a positive way, and to have listened to your creative muse instead of ignoring him.
Which is another term for honoring myself. Honoring ourselves, honoring myself is very fulfilling.
So I don't know if you heard those loud explosions on my end of the call earlier.
Yeah. I can't say I did. That tells me how bad of a listener I am. There was an explosion I didn't even hear.
Well, I just wanted to reassure you it's not a death threat against you, JP. But I heard that you recently had some death threats. I wondered how you dealt with that.
It was a struggle. Yeah. So I'm in Costa Rica right now. I have been for a little over a month. My girlfriend has a place down here and she's running some yoga teacher training productions. So my schedule allows me to be here for the couple months with her. It's wonderful. So when I got to Costa Rica, it's my third time being here this year. I'm like, Costa Rica is awesome. Let me do a video on it, like a parody video on Costa Rica. And I did, and I released it, and there was definitely a percentage of people who felt very hurt by it and very outraged. And oftentimes when people feel hurt, they're not just in a vulnerable state of saying, oh, that hurts, I'm sad. But anger and outrage can be a part of it. So the video with some people, some of the locals, was interpreted very differently than I intended. So yeah, I'm certainly sincerely sorry about that. And so I deleted the video because like it was received on a large enough scale that was inaccurate relative to my intention. It's like, no, didn't have the effect I wanted. But also there was the death threats that came with that and harassment on the street. So it was just, when people are hurt, they can act in very angry expressions. And I get that. It's part of human nature. So yeah, with that was the first video I've ever deleted. I don't intend on making it a habit of deleting videos. Certainly my intention would be never again. However, if there's just cause for it, I certainly want the humbleness to recognize that.
Well, it sounds like a difficult decision. And
yeah.
I know some of the videos you mentioned before we hit record that you had nervousness on releasing them.
Yeah, so certainly the first video I released called How to Be Ultra Spiritual, I was nervous about that. That nervousness had so many dimensions. Like first, it's my first comedy video. Probably won't even be funny. And, also like, will people think I don't like spirituality, and fear about how it would be interpreted. And then I think it was the fifth video I made. It was called Using Ayahuasca. So a satirical look at what I would consider to be the movement of perpetrator shamanism around ayahuasca. that's, it's when something good becomes well known, you're going to get some flies going towards the light too. So I was very nervous about that because some of my old communities that I had been very involved with in California, a lot of those people are in circles where perpetuatory shamanism. That's an interesting word. I just tried to say. Perpetrator shamanism is a big thing. So it felt like essentially dispelling a family secret. So that was a big one. And then I know there's been some others, but I think most recently the video that had me uncomfortable about making and releasing, I did a video maybe 6 weeks ago on gun control.
Oh yes, I saw that one.
And no question, especially in the US, guns are a religion. And, religious mindset, how dare you threaten the thing that I identify with because it helps me feel power to the degree that I feel powerless inside, and all that stuff that we pretend like isn't there. So, I was a little nervous, definitely nervous about releasing the video, but there was no question I have to do it because my creative muse is inspiring me to do that, which gives me a sense of purpose behind it. And I've had so many experiences of feeling scared about doing something, but I jump off that cliff anyway. So I know that this is scary. It feels sometimes, it scares me to death, but I know I'm not going to die from it because I've been in this sensation before, or a sensation like it.
Except when you're in countries that begin with the letter C.
That's when there's legitimate death threats involved. It's like, okay, now being scared to death may not just be a byproduct of my imagination.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your new book. You mentioned that came from your intuition, the idea to write that.
Yeah, it was a twofold process. The publishers approaching me, but the intuitive part was it just felt like a yes. It's like, wow, I don't know how to write a book, but I just said yes to them. What am I doing?
Jumping off another cliff.
That's exactly what it was. And then certainly the whole writing process was very much diving into the well of creativity that is the same thing as intuition. So that was quite a thrill, quite a excitement, quite intimidating as well. So quite a new rite of passage to connect and strengthen my connection with my intuition to a greater degree.
Yeah, I know when I wrote my first book this year, I had to overcome a lot of fears about what people would think, or what if they liked it, or what if they didn't like it. It was like going back to high school.
100%. It's just like, well, here's the new high school.
Yeah. So before I ask people, how they can find you, I've got a question for you, which is, given how important intuition in business is in both our views, what will it take to make it more openly used this year?
To make my intuition more openly used, or more in general?
To make every business leaders openly use their intuition.
Yeah, I think a willingness to be the true warrior who, going to use your words, feels fear and does it anyway. I think it's scary to use our intuition, scary to be aware of it, and even scarier to abide by it, because we have oftentimes very little guarantees, sometimes zero guarantees that our intuition is going to be right. So it's scary. It can feel safe to go the predictable route that's logically laid out. Nothing wrong with logic. I still want those faculties. But like Einstein said it best, our intuitive mind is a sacred gift and our rational mind is a faithful servant. And I think grace happens in our business and personal lives when we allow that to be the flow. Intuition, that's the sacred gift. Can I treat it like that? Rational mind, that's the servant. Can I treat it like that? So I think business people being willing to feel fear and act anyway is the key to allowing us to be more open with our intuitions.
Well, great words of wisdom there, JP. If people want to find you online, what would be the ways they would do that?
Yeah, all my social media handles are Awaken with JP. I'm on all the usual suspected places. I would say YouTube and Facebook are the places I'm most active with posting videos on all the time.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us from downtown Costa Rica.
You're welcome, my friend. I so appreciate you inviting me on and allowing me to be a part of your lovely offering, one of your lovely offerings for the world.